Demonic possession is one of the most misunderstood experiences in human history. Not because it isn't real, but because it has been explained at the wrong level of reality for thousands of years. When ancient people spoke of demons, they weren't stupid or superstitious. They were observant. They were describing something they could feel, something that moved inside a human being with its own momentum, voice, and intent. What they lacked was a modern language for structure, so they spoke in myth, and myth, when read correctly, is compressed psychology. In my book, Awaken Your Shadow, I make a claim that offends both the materialist and the mystic. Demons are not external beings invading the human soul, and they are not imaginary either. They are convergent inner forces, self-reinforcing patterns of emotion, memory, instinct, and meaning that reach a level of coherence where they behave like an intelligence. This is why possession doesn't feel like a bad habit. It feels like not you. People say things like, "Something came over me," or "I wasn't myself," or "I knew better, but I couldn't stop." That language is precise. When a convergent pattern hijacks the nervous system, consciousness is no longer the author, it becomes the passenger. Carl Jung understood this long before neuroscience caught up. He wrote, "People do not have ideas, ideas have people." And even more unsettling, he observed that psychic complexes behave as if they had a will of their own. That is not poetry. That is diagnosis. Religion called these forces demons. Psychology calls them complexes. Neuroscience calls them dominant neural networks. Physics calls them coherence. The argument is not about what they are, it is about where they operate. This is where the holographic universe theory becomes essential, not mystical. Physicist David Bohm described reality as an unbroken wholeness in flowing movement, where what we experience as separate objects are projections from a deeper implicate order. Neuroscientist Carl Pribram applied this same model to the brain, proposing that memory and perception are distributed holographically, not stored in isolated locations. In a hologram, every part contains the whole. So when an internal pattern becomes sufficiently coherent, emotionally charged, neurologically reinforced, and repeatedly activated, it does not feel local. It feels external. It feels like an entity. Michael Persinger's experiments with electromagnetic stimulation of the temporal lobes accidentally proved this. Subjects reliably reported sensing presences, beings, or intelligences in the room. Persinger concluded, "The sense of a presence is generated by the brain. Generated does not mean imagined. It means produced by structure." Antonio Damasio later drove the final nail into the coffin of naive rationalism when he said, "We are not thinking machines that feel, we are feeling machines that think." Translation: consciousness follows physiology. If the body is hijacked, the mind will rationalize the hijacking. This is why possession cannot be solved with insight alone. Reason operates inside the system that has already been compromised. And this is also why ancient exorcism rituals worked far more often than modern therapy wants to admit. Not because priests had magical authority, but because ritual engages the nervous system at the level where possession actually lives. In Awaken Your Shadow, I lay out a ritual structure that is not symbolic, not theatrical, and not superstitious. Every step performs a precise, mechanical function. First, fasting. Fasting destabilizes existing convergent patterns. It reduces metabolic noise, lowers baseline emotional reactivity, and weakens habitual loops. A possessed system is rigid. Fasting introduces controlled instability. Second, fixation of attention. This is sustained, non-reactive attention. Care is not softness. care is endurance. When attention remains present without rejection or urgency, hijacking patterns lose their grip. They feed on compulsive meaning. Care starves them. Third, breath work. Breath is the only voluntary bridge into the autonomic nervous system. Controlled breathing interrupts fight or flight reflexes and brings unconscious physiological processes back under partial authorship. This is where will stops forcing and starts coordinating. Fourth, neuroplasticity through prayer. With the system destabilized and attention stabilized, the brain becomes temporarily malleable. This is not belief. It is measurable neuroplasticity. Old circuits weaken, new ones can form. Fifth, visualization. Visualization is not fantasy. It is rehearsal. The nervous system does not distinguish sharply between imagined and enacted states. New convergent patterns must be shown to the system, not explained to it. Sixth, sound healing. Rhythm entrains. Chant, tone, vibration, these synchronize neural firing patterns. This is why every ancient culture used sound in exorcism. Sound is structure applied through vibration. Seventh, implementation. Without action, nothing holds. The final step grounds the new pattern in lived behavior. This is the seal. Without it, the system reverts. This is why Jesus warned that when an unclean spirit leaves a man, it will return with 7 others if the house is left empty. That was not a moral warning. It was a call to be diligent. You cannot remove a convergent pattern without replacing it. Jung echoed this when he said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Religion called it possession. Modern culture calls it just how I am. The most dangerous possession is the one that convinces you it doesn't exist. Demonic possession is not about good versus evil. It is about authorship versus automation, sovereignty versus surrender, conscious participation versus unconscious obedience. The shadow is not the enemy. The shadow is unclaimed power. And the moment you reclaim authorship over the forces within you, they stop ruling you and begin to serve.